They thought your presence was permanent until your silence showed them what life feels like without you. And now something inside them is shifting. They may not admit it openly, but their fear of losing you is becoming stronger than their pride. If you have felt someone pulling away, acting cold, or hiding behind silence, listen carefully. Sometimes distance does not end a connection. Sometimes it awakens what the other person was too afraid to face. Watch until the end, because you will understand why your calmness may become the very thing that makes them take the next step. If this message is already speaking to your situation, stay with me and write, "I choose myself," in the comments. Because the moment you choose yourself, people finally discover the weight of your absence. When you become silent, something powerful begins to happen in the space between you and that person. Before, your presence may have been too available, too predictable, too easy for them to depend on without appreciating it. They may have believed that no matter how cold they became, no matter how distant they acted, no matter how little effort they gave, you would still remain there, waiting, explaining, understanding, forgiving, and reaching out. But the moment you stop chasing, the illusion breaks. Your silence becomes a mirror, and in that mirror, they begin to see the truth of their own attachment. This is where many people get shaken internally. They may have convinced themselves that they were not deeply connected to you. They may have acted detached, uninterested, or emotionally superior. But once your energy is no longer moving toward them, they feel the absence. They feel the quiet. They feel the missing warmth that used to surround them. And that absence speaks louder than anything you could have said. Your silence does not beg. It does not argue. It does not force them to understand your value. It simply removes the comfort they were taking for granted. That is why silence can be so revealing. It shows whether their connection to you was real or whether they only enjoyed the attention you provided. If they were only feeding their ego, they may become irritated because they no longer feel important. But if there is real attachment beneath their pride, your silence will disturb them in a deeper way. They may begin to wonder why you are no longer reaching out. They may check your social media, revisit old conversations, replay memories, or wait for your name to appear on their phone. Outwardly, they may act calm, but inwardly, something has shifted. Your absence forces them to meet the truth they avoided while you were still available. This is why you must understand the strength of silence. It is not manipulation when it comes from self-respect. It is a return to yourself. And when you return to yourself, the other person finally has to face what your presence truly meant to them. Pride is often the wall people build when they are afraid of being seen too deeply. That person may care more than they show, but instead of admitting it, they hide behind silence, distance, arrogance, or emotional control. They may tell themselves they are fine without you. They may pretend they do not notice your absence. They may even act colder than before, not because they feel nothing, but because feeling something makes them uncomfortable. Pride gives them the illusion of power. It allows them to avoid vulnerability while still hoping you will continue reaching toward them. But fear of loss is different. Fear of loss does not ask permission before entering the heart. It begins quietly. At first, they may only feel a small discomfort when you stop calling, texting, checking, or explaining yourself. Then that discomfort grows into questions. Why are you so calm now? Why are you not reacting? Why do you seem peaceful without them? Why does your absence feel heavier than they expected? This is the moment their pride begins to weaken. A person can ignore your words, but they cannot easily ignore the emotional consequence of losing access to you. When you were available, they could delay, avoid, and remain uncertain. They could keep you close enough to feel safe, but far enough to avoid responsibility. But when you step back, they are forced to realize that access to you is not guaranteed. Your energy is not something they can casually keep while offering nothing in return. That realization creates inner pressure. Their pride says, do not reach out first, but their fear says, what if they move on? Their pride says, stay silent, but their heart says, you may regret this. Their ego wants control, but their attachment wants connection. This inner conflict is what pushes them towards the next step. When fear of losing you becomes stronger than the fear of being vulnerable, they begin to move. It may not happen dramatically. It may begin with a small message, a sudden check-in, or an attempt to reopen communication. But beneath that small action is a deeper truth. Your absence has touched the part of them that pride could no longer protect. Before a person takes the next step, they usually begin by watching you. Not always openly, not always in a way you can easily prove, but their attention starts returning to you because your silence has created uncertainty. When you were constantly available, they did not need to study you. They already knew where you stood. They knew you cared. They knew you would respond. They knew your emotional door was open. But once your energy changes, they no longer feel sure, and uncertainty makes people observe more closely. They may begin checking your online presence, noticing what you post, who reacts to you, how peaceful you seem, and whether you are still emotionally affected by them. They may ask indirectly about you. They may appear where they know you might notice them. They may watch without speaking because they are trying to understand whether they still have a place in your world. This is not always love in its mature form. Sometimes it is fear. Sometimes it is curiosity. Sometimes it is ego. But the important thing is this: your change has disturbed the old pattern. When someone senses that you are no longer chasing, they begin looking for signs. Are you angry? Are you hurt? Are you moving on? Are you waiting? Are you becoming stronger without them? These questions begin working inside them. They may pretend not to care, but their attention gives them away. A person who is truly indifferent does not keep studying your silence. They move on without inner conflict. But when someone is still attached, your calmness becomes difficult for them to ignore. This is why you must not perform for their attention. Do not post to make them jealous. Do not act cold just to provoke a reaction. Do not turn your healing into a stage. Stay real. Stay grounded. Let your peace be natural, not theatrical. Because the moment you start acting for them, you give your power back. Their observation is only the beginning. Watching you does not mean they have changed. It only means they are becoming aware of your absence. The real test comes later, when they must decide whether to keep watching from a distance or finally step forward with honesty. The moment you choose self-respect, the entire emotional balance changes. Before, they may have felt that they held the power because you were the one reaching out, explaining, waiting, hoping, and trying to fix what they were not mature enough to face. They may have grown comfortable with your effort. They may have assumed your love meant endless patience. But when you stop abandoning yourself to keep the connection alive, something in the dynamic shifts immediately. Self-respect carries a different energy. It does not scream, it does not beg, it does not try to prove worth. It simply says, I will not keep offering myself where I am not being valued. That quiet boundary can affect someone more deeply than 1,000 emotional conversations. Because now they are no longer dealing with the version of you who bends just to keep them close. They are facing the version of you who can love, but still walk away when love becomes disrespectful. This is what creates urgency inside them. When you were chasing, they could delay their decision. They could stay confused. They could give little effort and still receive your emotional attention. But when your self-respect becomes visible, they realize that the old access is closing. You are no longer standing at the same door, waiting to be chosen. You are moving back into your own life. That movement makes them see you differently. Your value becomes clearer when it is no longer offered without limits. They begin to understand that your kindness was never weakness, your patience was never permission, and your loyalty was never something they could misuse forever. This realization can shake them because it removes the comfort they had in controlling the pace of the connection. But here is where you must be careful. Do not use self-respect as a trick to pull them back. That is still attachment wearing a mask. True self-respect is not performed to create fear in someone else. It is practiced because your peace matters. Whether they return or not, you remain loyal to yourself. And when someone sees that you are no longer desperate for their validation, they finally understand that keeping you requires more than words, more than silence, and more than occasional attention. When you pull your energy back, the person begins to feel the result of the distance they created. Before, they may have enjoyed the comfort of knowing you were still there. Even if they were inconsistent, unavailable, or emotionally confusing, your effort kept the connection alive. Your messages, your patience, your explanations, your willingness to understand them, all worked like a cushion. They did not have to fully face the effect of their behavior because you were still absorbing the pain and trying to repair the bond. But when you stop carrying the connection alone, the emotional weight returns to them. They begin to feel the silence they once gave you. They begin to notice the absence they created. They begin to experience what it means when someone who once cared deeply no longer reaches with the same warmth. This is not revenge. This is not cruelty. This is simply consequence. Many people only understand value when comfort disappears. While you were available, they may have confused your loyalty with weakness. They may have assumed your forgiveness meant they could keep delaying change. They may have believed that no matter how little they gave, you would still keep showing up. But the moment you stop overextending yourself, they are forced to sit with the space their own actions produced. That space can become uncomfortable very quickly. They may miss your presence, your emotional support, your kindness, your attention, or the feeling of being understood by you. They may suddenly realize that the connection was not being maintained by both people equally. It was being held together by your effort. And once your effort is removed, they see how empty their side truly was. This is often when they begin to reflect. They may replay moments where they acted cold, ignored your feelings, delayed honesty, or took your patience for granted. They may not admit guilt immediately, but something inside them starts connecting the dots. Your absence becomes a lesson they cannot argue with. The strongest part is this: you do not need to punish them. You only need to stop saving them from the consequences of how they treated you. When you step back with dignity, their own choices begin speaking louder than your pain ever could. Their next step may not look like a dramatic confession. This is where many people make a mistake. They expect the other person to suddenly come forward with perfect words, full accountability, and clear emotional honesty. But most people who are distant, avoidant, proud, or emotionally guarded do not move like that at first. They move carefully. They test the ground before they expose what they truly feel. So their first step may be small, a simple message, a reaction to your story, a casual, "How have you been?" A joke that tries to reopen the door without sounding too serious. They may bring up an old memory, send something that reminds them of you, or appear interested in your life again after acting silent for a long time. On the surface, it may look ordinary, but underneath, they are checking whether your energy is still available to them. This is why you must watch carefully, not with obsession, but with awareness. A small step can mean they are afraid of losing you, but it does not automatically mean they are ready to treat you better. Sometimes people reach out because they miss your presence, not because they have understood your pain. Sometimes they come back because they feel lonely, not because they are prepared to be honest. Sometimes they want reassurance that they still matter to you without offering the clarity you deserve. Do not rush to reward tiny effort with full access. That is the trap. If they send one message, do not immediately return to the same version of yourself who gave everything too quickly. Stay calm. Let them show consistency. Let them move beyond hints, beyond testing, beyond emotional crumbs. A person who truly does not want to lose you will not only knock on the door once, they will show through repeated action that they are willing to step closer with maturity. Their small move is only the beginning of the truth. It reveals interest, not transformation. It shows concern, not commitment. The real meaning comes from what they do after they get your attention. Do they become clearer, kinder, and more responsible? Or do they disappear again once they feel secure? That difference will tell you everything. When a person feels they might lose you, they are often forced to face the very emotions they spent so long avoiding. This is not always easy for them, because avoidance usually becomes a habit. They may have avoided honest conversations, avoided commitment, avoided vulnerability, avoided responsibility, or avoided admitting how much you actually meant to them. As long as you were still reaching out, they could keep hiding behind confusion. But your silence removes that hiding place. Now they have to sit with themselves. They have to ask why they pushed you away when they wanted closeness, why they stayed silent when they wanted to speak, why they acted careless when your presence mattered, why they allowed pride, fear, or emotional immaturity to control their behavior. This inner confrontation can be uncomfortable because it does not allow them to blame you so easily anymore. Some people avoid love not because they do not feel it, but because love demands honesty. It demands that they become responsible for the effect they have on another person. It demands that they stop playing safe behind mixed signals and half effort. So when they realize you may truly leave, they are not only afraid of losing you, they are afraid of meeting the part of themselves that caused the distance. This is where their next step becomes meaningful. Reaching out is not enough. Missing you is not enough. Feeling regret is not enough. The real question is whether they are willing to grow. Are they willing to speak clearly? Are they willing to admit what they avoided? Are they willing to stop protecting their ego at the cost of your peace? Do not confuse their emotional discomfort with transformation. A person can feel guilty and still repeat the same pattern. A person can miss you and still refuse to mature. A person can fear losing you and still lack the courage to love you properly. That is why you must observe their actions carefully. Their avoidance created the distance, but their honesty must repair it. If they truly do not want to lose you, they must come forward with more than longing. They must come forward with self-awareness, accountability, and a willingness to meet you without masks. When they finally take the next step, your greatest test will not be their return. Your greatest test will be whether you forget yourself the moment they show interest again. This is where many people lose the growth they worked so hard to build. They wait for one message, one apology, one sign of attention, and suddenly they open the whole door again. They confuse being missed with being valued. They confuse contact with commitment. They confuse emotion with change. You must be wiser than that. If someone comes back because they are afraid to lose you, that fear may be real, but fear alone cannot build a healthy connection. A person can fear losing you and still not know how to love you properly. They can miss your warmth and still avoid responsibility. They can say they care and still repeat the same patterns that hurt you before. This is why your standard must stay firm. Do not punish them. Do not act superior. Do not become cold just to prove a point. But also do not hand them full access just because they returned. Let their actions speak over time. Let them show consistency. Let them communicate clearly. Let them respect your boundaries without making you feel guilty for having them. Let them prove that they are not only reacting to your absence, but growing from it. Because attention is easy when someone feels they are losing control. Real change is harder. Real change means they understand what they did, they take responsibility for it, and they make different choices without needing to be chased, begged, or threatened by your silence. That is what you must watch for. Your peace should not become the price you pay for someone else's uncertainty. You can care about them deeply and still require maturity. You can forgive them and still move slowly. You can listen to them and still protect your heart. The strongest version of you does not run back just because the person finally knocks. The strongest version of you opens the door only when there is respect standing on the other side. So if they take the next step, receive it calmly. Do not collapse into hope too quickly. Their return may be meaningful, but their consistency will reveal the truth. Your value is not proven by whether they come back. Your value is proven by whether you remain loyal to yourself when they do. In the end, the truth is simple. When someone realizes they may truly lose you, their inner world begins to change. The silence they once ignored becomes heavy. The distance they once created begins to disturb them. The person who thought you would always remain available suddenly has to face the possibility that your heart is no longer waiting at the same door. But you must understand this clearly. Their fear of losing you is not enough. Their next step only matters if it comes with honesty, maturity, and real effort. A message is not proof. A memory is not proof. A sudden return is not proof. The proof is consistency. The proof is accountability. The proof is whether they can meet you with respect instead of confusion, with clarity instead of games, with action instead of temporary emotion. Your silence did not make you weak, it revealed your strength. Your distance did not destroy the connection, it exposed what was real and what was only being kept alive by your effort. And now, if they choose to move toward you, they must understand that they are not returning to the old version of you. They are meeting someone who has learned the value of peace, boundaries, and self-respect. So do not chase the next step. Let it come. Let them show who they are without you forcing, begging, or explaining your worth again. If they truly do not want to lose you, they will not only speak, they will grow. They will show up differently. They will understand that your presence is not something to be handled carelessly. And if they do not take that step, then let that also speak. Because the right person will not need to lose you completely to understand your value. And the strongest version of you will never again abandon yourself just to be chosen by someone who could not recognize what they had when it was standing right in front of them.